Welcome to Gen Z Hoops, the Gen Z basketball, coaching, and sports business show. On this podcast, you'll learn from professional players, coaches, and executives from all over the world and see the court in a brand new way. And now, joining you courtside, your Gen Z host, John Harder-Phillips.
LD, my man, what's going on?
Man, I'm chilling, about to get in some work actually here in a little bit.
I'm excited for it, dude. You're doing some pretty cool stuff right now. And I got to shout you out right now for being probably, I got to check back in my message history, the fastest guest ever to go from message to recorded episode. Literally, we were talking last night at like midnight. You responded to my message. I hit you right back. And you're like, yo, tomorrow 7 p.m. Let's do it. So excited to have you on. We got to get this going. The energy is incredible. And your basketball story itself is really, really cool. So I really appreciate you for being so on top of it and supporting the show.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I have a small platform of my own, so speedy responses are definitely welcome. You know, trying to get guests on my podcast that we talk about Wake Forest basketball and sports on. Like, it's tough because we want the current guys, coaches, or whatever. So, like I said, I didn't have anything going on, and I used to, like, waiting a couple of days. Let's get on here and talk ball.
Definitely working really fast, making things happen. I love it. And to jump right in, I'm sure, right, in the last 2 months, you've been asked a million questions about your new job with the Nets, but I'm not going to start there because we'll get to that. And that's the good stuff. But to start, I want to know about you. I want to know about LD. I want to know about you falling in love with basketball, how that all happened, because you had you played a lot. You're now doing all this cool stuff in the NBA, but I want to hear about like a high school version of you that, like, you know, maybe wasn't too sure of himself, maybe didn't know if he could really play at a high level, and how that really all came together for you.
I think I fell in love with basketball even before I knew what basketball was. I was a big basketball junkie, so I always tell people I was born with a ball in my hand. Like, the earliest pictures of me are me pushing the basketball across the floor in my parents' house, or like I had this stuffed ball. I kept it until college, until it just withered away into the abyss. So yeah, man, I think the love was always there. But growing up, I played everything. Soccer in the morning, football in the afternoon or in the evenings, baseball in the spring, basketball all summer. I mean, I ran track. So I did everything. I was drawn to all sports. I was just an athletic kid. But basketball, I just felt different when I was out there. I just felt more confident in myself. That's just what I gravitated to. And then as I became more athletically gifted, I became a little bit better and better. And it just stuck. It stuck with me just to follow this dream that my dream was never even to play at a high level other than college. My dad, his brothers, huge basketball fans, and then it just seeped through the gene pool and got to me.
Also thinking about, right, like you maybe starting off with the basketball in your hand, always loving the game and it taking you to so many different places. When did you like realize it was like, okay, it's go time. Like I can really do something with this. I mean, I saw, right, when Monverde is one of the best programs in the nation and you transferred in there during your high school career. Talk to us a little about maybe that move, because for a high school kid, right, that's a big jump to go to one of the best programs in the nation. And now, right, the competition's so high up. Like, is that maybe where you realized it, or maybe leaving a little bit earlier? Like, okay, this is for real.
I would say I realized it. My parents will say they realized it like in 8th grade, going into my freshman year. I got my first college offer from Tennessee. So they'll say it was earlier, but even then, like I wasn't really paying attention to that stuff. But my sophomore year, like I saw a separation between myself and my peers, like locally. And then when we were playing in tournaments like around the country, like I wasn't just fitting in, I was standing out too. So then that it kind of became like, all right, like this thing could really turn into something special. My sophomore year in high school, like we had a pretty good run for a state title. We lost in the semifinals to the team that won it, and they won it by like 25. They beat us by like 6 or 8. So it was just all kind of coming together. I started playing AAU basketball for Boo Williams that summer. So it just was like a crazy transition to where it was like just a small town kid from middle of nowhere, North Carolina, to, all right, now I'm going to Montverde Academy as a junior. And I'm probably the first guy that was ranked that transferred into Montverde. Like 110% sure that I started that trend. So that, I mean, obviously when you're at Montverde, now you're on the national stage playing against teams from all over the country, and I'm still standing out. Like I'm not just fitting in. I'm not just one of the guys. I am the guy. AAU was different, but at Montverde, like I was the guy. Played with some really good players. And then, now I'm playing AAU with, I had 3 McDonald's All-Americans on my AAU team, and I'm playing, like getting minutes. And then like now all the other schools are starting to trickle in, and it gets crazy.
I think it's really crazy right there when all that stuff's happening and you're right playing such a high level with all these high level guys that now, right, a lot of them are, but you're going to a school like Wake Forest, eventually making that decision with school, the school that produced guys like Tim Duncan and Chris Paul and all these huge names. You're actually on a list with Tim Duncan for starting. He's the only maybe person at Wake Forest started more games than he was a freshman. So that's like great to be in that company is kind of insane. But like thinking about that, right? So you start getting really serious. What made you decide on Wake Forest and how did that experience go for you?
I think Wake Forest kind of chose me. This is another like I was saying, I only ever wanted to just play basketball at Wake Forest. Like I grew up watching Michael Jordan, idolizing the Bulls in that time period. But like realistically for me, the highest level that I saw for myself was at Wake Forest. And it goes even like Robert O'Kelly, those type players. Obviously Tim, Rusty LaRue, Tony Rutland, who played AAU for Boo Williams, Randolph Childress, who played for my high school coach. Like those were the guys that I wanted. I saw myself and I was like, I can't be Mike, but I can be one of these guys. I just fell in love with Wake Forest from the time I was in like 6th grade until now, still to this day. So that's why I chose Wake Forest. Obviously, I entertained a number of different schools. Going to school in Florida, all the Florida schools recruited me pretty heavily. Wake Forest in North Carolina, with only 2 schools in North Carolina that really recruited me heavily. Maryland, like UNC Charlotte or something like that. But yeah, no, Wake Forest was it. And then when I met Coach Prosser for the first time my sophomore year in high school, I knew that if I got the opportunity, I was definitely going to play for him.
So cool thinking about all that and how, right, like the stepping stones and how that all kind of rounded out itself out. I noticed that, and I'm sure maybe it's a thing that maybe still exists when you're doing all this video stuff, but defense was a huge priority for you. And you're the only player in program history like to be on the ACC team, a defensive team. And that's the list, right? Even Tim Duncan wasn't on it. So it's kind of crazy whether you're the first person to do that. Why was that an emphasis for you? Like what made that such a big part of your game and maybe what fuels you as being out that maybe lockdown defender?
I realized early, and it was just something that I realized when I got to school. Like if I can play defense, then I'm always going to play. It wasn't something that I knew I was good at coming into school. I never really paid attention to it. But then when I got to school, I knew that if I just played defense at a high level, then I was going to be out there. And if I was out there, then I was going to score some points. I was that talented. Snowballing into me being a really good defender. And I just embraced it. That was my role. I loved it. My personality on the court is a little pesky. And so it was able for me to, talk a little trash and, get up under the other guy's skin because that was my role. So it was just, it played into who I was as a person. It helped us. Something that we hung our hat on, our defense, and I was the head of that snake.
That's awesome, right? Being in charge, taking ownership of that being your quality and going all in on it and being the best at what you do is so cool. But right, also I've seen you right before that you were kind of like an extension of the coaching staff on the floor. Like you really like that was a big thing in college for you is having that coaching mind. Maybe if it wasn't coaching, if it's more the video room, you were thinking that way. Was that something that you were thinking about maybe like the whole time you were in college, or was it after you graduated and you were kind of playing professionally and you still did some? I saw you did some video stuff even while you were playing professionally. Like how did that all tie in with each other?
I always prided myself on being a smart player. Even like when I was in middle school, I would always be more concerned about how many turnovers I had and how many assists I had because I wanted to know how the game was supposed to be played. I wanted to know why certain actions created certain movements and stuff like I wanted to know all that stuff from when I was a kid. And then when you get to school, you start hearing it from your coaches. For me, it was probably a bad thing they used to tell me that is because I always used to challenge them with tough questions. So they would always be like, man, you're going to be a great coach one day, LD. I thought it was sarcasm. I later found out that they were being dead serious. And then I played for some amazing coaches too. I played for Skip Prosser in college, but Kevin Sutton was my high school coach, and he's now Florida Gulf Coast, and he's been at some of the biggest programs in the country. Georgetown, Pitt, came from Rhode Island. I mean, he's been George Washington. So playing for those two guys, and then Dino Gaudio, who's the other coach who filled in after Coach Prosser passed. I mean, I played for great pro coaches. Bob McKinnon comes to mind, D. Brown, Sasha Doncic, who's Luka Doncic's father, Fred Sarr in France. Tim Cone in the Philippines, who's considered the Phil Jackson of the Filipino Basketball Association. I just had some awesome coaches. And so, I felt like that could be an avenue for me because of how I felt about the game, how I think I know the game pretty well. And then it's basketball.
I had no idea that Luka's dad coached. That's actually really cool thinking about that. I just never knew. When I think about the great coaches you were around and how you always have that as your backbone. But it's really cool thing. Right? I mean, to me, it's cool about the defense stuff and the coaching stuff. But to most people, that's not like what's sexy. What's sexy is dunking the basketball. And you were actually really good at that too. So I wanted to ask you, what were your so you won 2 slam dunk championships. What were your go-to dunks in either one of those? Or what was maybe the winning dunk in one of them?
Man, that's funny. The dunk that people probably remember the most isn't even my favorite dunk, but the dunk that won it for me both times, I did them 2 different ways. The first time, Jerry Smith, who was one of my best friends in the world, just held the ball in his hand, and I just jumped up, took it out of his hand, and windmilled it, and then stuck my elbow in the rim.
Oh man, that's fine.
So I won it that way, and then the other one, I just tossed it up, windmill, elbow in the rim. I did that in France because nobody wanted to hold it up. They were all scared. But my favorite one is the 360 reverse 360 windmill. That's the one. I just felt like that was my dunk. I owned it. I knew, even if I jumped too far or didn't get a good platform, I knew I could always put that one down.
Oh, that's awesome. I got to make sure I either find them on YouTube or I'm going to ask you for some clips when I put them over this video. That'd be really cool. Just thinking about either one of those 2 dunks is fire. I'm really cool thinking about that. Oh, but right, awesome. I mean, it's so cool thinking about, obviously dunks get everyone excited. So I'm sure everyone's listening to this episode, their ears perked up. Like, oh wait, this guy can punch it. Like, yeah, that's got to be maybe the most fun part. You still, after your playing career, I mean, what you're doing now is so cool in the video. And to me, at least, I find that stuff super fascinating. So, I mean, when did maybe once with your playing career, you realize, you know what, the video is something I'm passionate about. I want to kind of get into that. And how did that maybe all take shape to now where you're with an NBA team doing that stuff?
I think it's just another situation where stuff just fell into my lap. I got into coaching because I wanted to coach. And when I was a video coordinator at Winthrop for that short time, I was injured. Pat Kelsey had a spot on his staff, and it just worked out. I thought I wanted to coach, but then I got a call from my agent. I got in a pretty good situation. So obviously I went back to playing, but having that little bit of experience kind of prepared me for now. And then, so after I got done playing, I just hung out in Columbus and trained guys for the year and started my own girls AAU program and was just doing that and was kind of content doing that for the time being. I knew I wanted to coach, and I just didn't know at what level I wanted to coach at. A friend of mine who was my trainer whenever I played is now the shooting coach for the Mavericks. And he invited me to Summer League. He was like, man, you should come out to Summer League, network, try to meet people, let people know that you're serious about trying to get into the NBA. So I reluctantly did that. I went to Summer League and I just did the whole networking deal. And my mentor introduced me to somebody from the Nets. And then we had a conversation and then it just started snowballing. Next thing I knew, I was at the hotel interviewing for positions. And I didn't even realize I was interviewing yet. I just thought I was talking to these people as a network, let those people know that I was interested in getting into it. I was interviewing the whole time. And then, they invited me to Brooklyn for a couple of workouts just to hang around and be up there. And I got back, and they offered me a position. I accepted it on the spot. 2 weeks later, I was up there getting ready for training camp.
Well, I wish I got to see you at Summer League. I got to ask real quick, was the said shooting coach from the Mavericks, Peter Patton? Because he's a former guest of the show, and I thought it was him right away.
Peter is my guy.
Okay. When you said shooting coach and you said you were friends with him, I'm like, wait, Peter also had that AAU, that background of training guys and got the NBA job. So the puzzle pieces fit together. I was like, okay, it's got to be Peter Patton. So I
Peter's my guy. That's mine. That's like family to me.
That is so cool. He came on. Oh man, I gotta get this right. Episode 127 of Gen Z Hoops. There's a running joke that I know all the numbers of every guest, but he was a couple months ago. A great guy. It was awesome having him on. And it's funny when you said that, I knew it was him. So it's pretty funny to make that connection though.
Yeah, my God, he taught me how to shoot at 23 years old.
So what did he? So I gotta ask you then. What did he, in terms of with your shot? What did he change that helped at 23? That's crazy.
I mean, we rebuilt it. Like all the stuff that he taught, like we just started from scratch. And he wouldn't let me shoot out the paint for 3 months.
That's a long time. That guys get like really, they're itching to get back to the 3-point after 3 days.
Nope, we did it for 3 months. We did 4 shots for 3 months. It was frustrating. I would leave sometimes and be like, yeah, this dude don't know what the hell he's talking about. And I went through all those shooting pains, but it took us about, I would say, a good 6 months of working together. And by the time I understood it, I was the best shooter in the D League for a little bit.
Wow, that's awesome. Thinking about that growth and that change. And obviously it's kind of like that Karate Kid scene, like you're kind of frustrated, like, you know, what is this? What does this actually do? Turns out it actually worked out in the end. To be the best shooter in the D League, that's insane.
Yeah, for a while. Yeah, not the whole season, but start of the season, I was really shooting the crap.
Love it. Oh, that's awesome thinking about that. So that's really cool thing about how connections and how that all kind of pulls together and your time at Summer League. So I know now you're right, you're not in Brooklyn now, but you're planning on coming to Brooklyn soon. Like how is this season for the Nets going to shape up for you now that you got it?
Oh man, it's been great. I mean, just being around those type of basketball minds every day. Not even just the players. Obviously, Steve is great basketball mind. Jacques Vaughn, savant, knows the game like the back of his hand. Dave Vanderpool, another assistant, Brian Keefe, Jordan Ott, like the whole staff is just a plethora of basketball knowledge on both ends of the floor. And then obviously the players are the players. To be around some of the best players in the country. I mean, it's in the world, in the world. So just to watch those guys and learn how they operate and what makes them tick, I mean, I'm only getting better from every aspect.
That's exciting stuff. I'm really excited to hear about that and how you're gonna be in New York doing that cool stuff. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to connect over that. It's gonna be really cool. But one question I love to ask guests, especially when there's other passions, and you know me, I love basketball. You love basketball. I mean, anyone listens to the show can get that right away from either one of us to listen to this episode. But COVID taught us what life's like without basketball. It's a scary place. But I noticed looking at your Wikipedia, I had to point this out that in high school you were the member of the choir and president of the Bible study club. So yeah. I'm just curious, if basketball were wiped off the face of the earth, would you become like a pastor or do you have something else in mind? What would you do?
Oh man, so it's funny that you say pastor because I've heard like people definitely alluded to me being a pastor, but I couldn't be a pastor. If basketball wasn't a thing, I probably would have played football. Honestly, I probably would have still like tried to pursue a sport. I have no musical talent at all. I don't know why they list that on Wikipedia because my senior year in high school, like I ran out of like some classes to take, so I needed like filler spots. Concert choir, because our music teacher, she was looking for like men to sing in the show. They had none, and they were looking for some like sopranos and some I said sopranos, baritones. Isn't that the ones that sing really low? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the deep voices. Yeah.
Yeah. So she recruited me and one other guy, and so because I did concert choir, they was like, well, you might as well do show choir, so you can like run around the stage a little bit, and we did show choir too. But
that's I saw that. I was like, I gotta ask you. I gotta know where the background of Bible study was. And there's been a couple funny moments in this show. This was number one. I learned. I mean, hearing about your career and how it maybe intertwined. I learned a lot from this. I know a lot of our guests will too. And I'm sure a lot. My phone's always ringing after I post an episode with people asking me like, "Oh, that was," or giving me great feedback. And I'm sure I'll get a lot of that feedback with this one too. So LD, I really want to thank you for coming on and sharing this with us. This was awesome, and I can't wait to see you sometime in NYC soon. We gotta make that happen.
Oh yeah, for sure. Drop your number on the LinkedIn, and I'll definitely text you.
Thanks for listening to Gen Z Hoops. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe on Instagram, LinkedIn, and all major social media platforms at Gen Z Hoops. You can tune in and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and every other podcast platform on the planet. Get ready for the next episode.